So this weekend we had the much awaited, long anticipated, and very much hyped race in Las Vegas. And look at this track. It's so beautiful. Although some people are calling it the upside down pig, I can see what they're seeing. It was anticipated to be slippery because of the cold nighttime temperatures, and indeed it was, and there was lots of drama. So let's get into who moved up and who moved down. So let's see who changed places this time. Hey, wow, so Sainz moves ahead of both Alonso and Norris. Carlos Sainz had to start with a 10-place grid penalty, so in P12, because in FP1 he got damage from running over a loose drain cover, and they had to replace the battery because of that damage. Completely not their fault, very unfair penalty, but at the same time, you could sort of see, okay, this is a car that's now got a new battery. We haven't just replaced the old battery with the exact same old battery. So yeah, it's a tough one to swallow, but 10-place grid penalty. Then in lap 1, he loses grip and runs into the rear wing of Hamilton and spins all the way down to P17. So really the worst possible outcome. He manages to pit in the lap 4 safety car and fight his way all the way back up to P6. A really nice recovery after some very bad luck. And this is enough to get him past two other drivers who had an even worse race than he did, if you can imagine. All right, so Alonso starts in P9, but slides in lap 1, and it was his own, he just did too much there to get past the drivers in front of him. He slipped, he spins around, he hits Bottas, kind of comes around nose to nose, which sends both drivers to the back. Lando has a terrible quali, does not get out of Q1, and starts way down in P15. He goes off in lap 3. Again, it's just his own car slipping, losing control. Pretty hard crash, and is out at that point. This incident brought out that first safety car and left him with a DNF. All right. Any more changes? No, everyone else stayed the same. So out of the reigning drivers, we have Max started in P2. It was Charles who qualified P1. He pushed Charles off track in turn 1 and got ahead and earned a 5-second penalty for that. And I thought it was totally unfair, but it could be that he lost some grip. And at first I thought, he's just going to pull ahead and make the penalty irrelevant. How unfair is that towards Charles? But actually, he grained up his tires and couldn't pull away. So he lost places to Charles after the first pit stop and actually had to work pretty hard to work his way back up. Much later, in lap 25, Max and George came into contact and caused another safety car. So Max had to, of course, then recover a little bit from that as well. He lost a front wing end plate and just drove the rest of the race without it. So had to nurse a little bit of damage to win the race. So it wasn't just a, brush off that 5-second penalty and win. It wasn't spin to win even. It was just, he actually drove really well to win back what happened in lap 1. Perez, he started in P11 after not making it to Q3. He picked up front wing damage in lap 1 with all the chaos and had to take a very early pit stop. But after the second safety car, he got a cheap second pit stop and was soon racing at the front of the pack. So that was a really well-timed safety car for them and for him. But still, later on in the race, Verstappen got ahead of him, and then he lost out to Charles on the very last lap, finishing in P3. And clinching P2 in the championship because Hamilton can no longer catch up those 41 points between them. Hamilton started in P10 had contact with Piastri in lap 18. They touched tires, and Hamilton got a puncture, so he had to pit. And that, combined with still not a great car, he ended up finishing in P7. So that was actually pretty good based on all that. And it's enough to clinch P3 in the championship. I don't think anyone really talked about that after the end of the race, but it is now too late for Sainz to catch up those 32 points between Hamilton and Sainz. So Hamilton is P3 in the championship standings, period. All right, let's move on to some of the other exciting drivers who had some exciting adventures during this race. Charles brilliantly qualified in P1 and actually had an amazing race. His fight with Perez toward the end was epic, with Charles on much older tires, them having not pitted at the second safety car because they were in front, and you have to kind of guess what's everyone else going to do. They didn't pit, everyone else pitted, so he was on older tires. Everyone else had pitted for new hards, but still he held off Perez for so long. And then after Perez finally passed him with just a couple of laps to go, he continued to fight. He stayed on him and took advantage of the one gap that Perez left to overtake him back and end the race in P2. So really fantastic, and he got driver of the day for it. So well done, Charles. And it saddens me to see him, so far down in the overall championship, because he's been driving like really well with what he's given and the luck that comes their way. Stroll had a great but quiet race. Nobody really talked about him because no incidents. He managed to not have incidents. He started in P19 after a terrible quali and didn't set a foot wrong. Pitted at all the right times, managed to finish in P5. Although it's a nice move up, it'll still be pretty tough to catch Piastri in the championship. If not impossible. That's 16 points. Someone would have to completely DNF and someone else would have to do extremely well. George Russell got a 5-second penalty for his collision that he caused with Max. It really looked like he just didn't see Max, went in for a normal turn, turned in, and Max was there like actually coming in to overtake. So bam. So it was later on in the race, so he drove to the end, he drove to the end with that 5-second penalty still owed, and so unfortunately there was a late safety car which sort of bunched up the pack, so dropping 5 points at the end actually dropped him from P4 to P8, so it was a big painful drop for him, but otherwise he did a good recovery race. Bottas qualified really well in P7 for Alfa Romeo. That was fantastic. But he had a ruined race after colliding with Alonso in lap 1. So that sent him right to the back with some damage to finish in P17, which was the back of all of the drivers who finished the race. So really ruined his race. Got a feel for him there. And that's it. Aside from Lando, Nico Hülkenberg also retired in lap 48, and Yuki Tsunoda also retired in lap 49 due to a gearbox issue. Thank you. All right, let's take a look at who is actually close in points. With one race to go, we still have a race, look at that, between Sainz and Alonso. 0 points between them. They are tied. Again, they were actually tied a few races ago after, or was it before, Mexico. So here we are again, this time at 200 points even. Which of the two Spaniards will come out on top? So here's Charles at 188, which is not that far, only 7 behind 185, which is only 5 behind 200. So he is actually in play for this battle between 4. I think any of them could actually get P4 in the championship, and it's always a big deal. So yeah, those are not huge points. This can be surmounted. I think for Charles to actually get up there, some bad things would have to happen to Sainz and or Alonso, but hey, we'll see. Gasly and Ocon, only 4 points between them, and teammates to boot. So we have, I think they are the most closely matched teammates on the whole grid, with just 4 points between them at this point level. And again, we'll have to see what happens between the two of them. Either one can get this. We also still have a tie between Ricardo and Zhou. So perhaps one of them will score a point in the last race. A point or two, maybe. We'll have to see. All right, let's see the teams. Nope, no changes on the teams. We have stuff that's close in points though. So we have here, it's still close, actually really close between Mercedes and Ferrari. So this is not clinched at all. Either team can get P2. And of course, as we know, this is a huge deal for the teams because this calculates their reward money at the end of the season, what they all worked for to win big, and to win back a lot of the costs that they've spent on the championship. I know Mercedes and Ferrari are like one of the rich teams, so they don't really need it, but hey, it still makes a difference and everyone will be happy. Same with Aston Martin. Okay, they are actually in striking distance of McLaren with 11 points. And with both drivers doing stuff now, with Lance coming back into pretty good form, having an error-free, race this time around, yeah, that is within striking distance. If McLaren finds themselves on the back foot again, and or one of the drivers doesn't actually manage a good result, Aston Martin could actually pass McLaren back. I think the rest are likely to stay the same, but it's not over till it's over. Wow, I really can't wait to see what happens. So yeah, this is it. We have one race to go and then it's the end of the season. I don't know what we're all gonna do, but yeah, the last race is coming up in Abu Dhabi. There are a few positions that can still change, so we will just have to wait and see. So that is hugely exciting, and I'll see you after that last one. Bye.